Okay, so we kind of started to touch on this, and I think you reached a conclusion that a lot of Americans are finally coming to. The divide might be too deep. Yeah. Now, I get frustrated with my friends who are devout Democrats and stuff like that because you start talking to them, you start having those one-on-one conversations about what they actually believe outside of politics. Like, how do you feel about guns? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Abortion, whatever it is. And they're not in line with their own party anymore. But they don't realize that.
Yeah.
So you start talking to them, and it's like, okay, you want to ask them the question, but they always get mad. Like, well, why do you support what you support? Because they get these ideas in their head that the other party is just, it's all Nazis, it's racist, it's this and that. It's like, dude, 75 million people voted for Trump. We don't have 75 million racists in this country.
No.
Not at all. The KKK is not 75 million strong.
No, if it was, they'd have a lot more power.
Yeah. And so it kind of brings it up, though. Like, do you think the divide's just too deep? Or I think my big frustration would be, why is it that people still believe what they believe about the Democrat Party because they still think it's the Democrat Party from the 1990s?
Here's the thing. Today's Democrat and Republican parties are not the Democrat and Republican parties of the 90s or the 80s or the 50s. They're just not. Or even of the 20s and 30s. Mm-hmm. Like, they're just not. Like, Republicans want to come up and stand and say, we're not racist because we were the party that ended slavery. Mm-hmm. Shit changes, guys. It just changes. You can't harp on a fact. Yes, Republicans were the ones that abolished slavery. They were for it. But you can't harp on something that happened that long ago and make it your standing point. I don't care what you did then. What are you doing now?
Exactly.
Same thing with the Democratic Party. What are you doing now? You
can't pull up what happened 150 years ago.
Exactly.
And say, this is my trophy here.
This is my trophy. This is my justification for everything I do.
The people that remembered that are gone, right? By generations now, multiple generations.
Yeah.
Even when you look at the Civil Rights Act and stuff like that, I mean, those people are gone or about to be gone.
Yeah.
And so, and I've always said this, I think Republicans are really bad at just communicating their own message. Okay, and
horrible.
And they have this bad habit of letting the other side communicate their message all the time. Okay, I actually read this quote a couple episodes ago. Dinesh D'Souza was talking about this. He's like, the inherent stupidity of the Republican Party, they keep accepting the other side's narrative to be true. Okay, remember, these people don't want to work with you guys. These people aren't reaching across the aisle. These people aren't wanting to unify unless they're the ones in charge.
They're just waiting for the numbers to do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, exactly. That's all they really want. Okay, they don't want to work with you. They don't want to listen to you. Here's the thing. Because right now there's a movement, or at least there's enough talk, and I've been around long enough to know that when they start dropping these hints, it means something later on down the road. It means they're going to try something later. Mm-hmm. Okay? Years ago they were talking about, let's give illegals driver's license, and there's a big debate about that. Well, now in a lot of states they can get driver's licenses, and now they're voting. Illegally, but they're still getting their votes there and counted, and it's not caught till much later. Okay? So you're kind of wondering, okay, what are they chipping away at now? What are they working towards? AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, started dropping hints about re-education, about deprogramming. I think Katie Couric used the term deprogramming Trump supporters, or trying to look at the other side as we need to deprogram, re-educate them, put something else in front of them so that they can basically come back to our side or de-radicalize. Okay, what's your thoughts on that kind of stuff? Like, what do you think that's headed towards?
One, I think it's not going to work. Like, you can't deprogram somebody to just think the way you want to think. Mm-hmm. I think the way that I think because of the way that I was raised and because of the experiences that I've had in my life. You try to deprogram me, you're basically saying that my upbringing and that my experiences are invalid. And to put it in terms that the left can understand, you're basically invalidating my own truth. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't do that. That's essentially mind control is what you're trying to do. You're not right unless you think the way I think.
Well, I think, yes. And then there's a level of arrogance there. Okay, because these are people who, obviously, they don't want an opposition. Okay? They don't want to have to argue with anybody. They don't want to have to do any of that. I mean, imagine this radical idea of simply just bringing good ideas to the floor. Or maybe better ideas. And I don't know, having a debate, having an argument, saying, hey, look, my idea is better and this is why. I mean, imagine your idea is so bad that you're like, well, I don't want to have an opposition anymore, and I think we should deprogram those people so they think more like me.
Yeah.
You know, like, isn't that an insurrection?
In and of itself, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally drawing the line saying the other half is the enemy.
I don't know where at the point in this country it came to, in order for us to get along, we both have to think the way that the other thinks.
Mm-hmm. I don't
like it, at what point did debate and understanding, okay, I respect your opinion, but we can agree to disagree, and we can still have a relationship on any level, despite the fact that we disagree.
And that's the thing, like, I've seen this...
This country lost that somewhere, and that's what has caused the divide.
Well, we start seeing each other as enemies.
Exactly.
You know, we start looking at the other side as my enemy. Guess what, Democrats? You're not my enemy, and I'm not your enemy. Okay? Guess what, activists on the streets? I'm not your enemy, and you're not my enemy. That's not who we are. Okay?
Exactly.
I had this theory about... It's actually applied to police work. When you have these large police agencies that have their own police academy, they do their own training, they recruit their own guys, they train them up, they have them serving, like San Francisco has this, LA County has this, you know, just these huge agencies, right?
Huge.
So I had these theories called Inbreeding. And what it is you bring in these newbies off the street who know nothing, you train them in your academy the way you want them to be trained, okay, you put them on the street with guys who are trained the same way, okay, and you have the same ideas in your department because the guys that are getting promoted and moving up were all trained the same way. Mm-hmm. And as a result, you have this very difficult time penetrating them with outside ideas, okay, because they've been doing things the same way for generations now.
Exactly. And then they leave that agency, they go someplace else, and they get a shell shock.
Exactly. And they're like, well, that's weird, that's not how we did it. And sometimes I've seen this where other agencies, they actually failed their FTO. This guy could be a cop for years in this big agency, go to a different agency, and they fail because they're like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff because in my big agency, we just called on the radio and said, these guys need to come take care of it. And they didn't know how to do it. You know? So it's a theory of inbreeding. Like, we're just gonna have bad ideas all the time. So my point is when I talk to my kids about stuff, I tell them, like, look, I can tell you what I think. You know, I can tell you why I believe these things. I can throw you the history. I can do this kind of stuff. But when all is said and done, I can't make you believe the things I believe. Yeah. And I don't want you to believe all the things I say.
You have to come to your own conclusions.
Yeah, but I don't want you to think the way I did, because my whole goal and process is to teach critical thought. Which means
that's how my mom raised me and all my siblings. Like the information is out there. Mm-hmm. You seek it out, you make your own decisions. Mm-hmm. Like, whether she was giving us the information or we're getting it from somewhere else, you seek out that information because that's the only way you can draw your own conclusions.
Right. And it's like my dad basically taught us principles, right? Just the little rules. Yeah. Okay, like if you overtax the people, you're being tyrannical, right? You know, like, but taxes are still necessary. Like, he taught us, like, these little things. Yes. But I still had to go out there and educate myself. My dad never picked up a history book and read stuff out loud to me. You know, he never picked up a novel, as far as I know, and, like, read things out loud to me. You know, but he knew these rules, and he did this stuff, and he taught some things, but a lot of it was just self-education. That's the thing.
You instill morals and principles, and then at some point, your kids have to go off. They have to get their own information. They have to make their own conclusions. They have to figure it out themselves,
right? But that's the thing. Like, my whole goal as a parent is to teach my kids critical thought, but to teach them, you know, basically break that inbreeding mold. Where I'm just teaching them the same bad ideas that are recirculating generation after generation, but teaching them, hey, you know, be critical enough that even when I tell you something, question whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
You know, because when I know something to be true, it's because I question whether it's true or not, and I did my homework and figured it out.
Honestly, you're never going to truly know where you stand unless you know both sides.